Thank you. Good afternoon, Peralta community. This is a meeting of the Peralta Community College District Board of Trustees, Finance and Budget Committee. We're calling the meeting to order at 1:04 p.m. on October 14th. Sasha, can we do roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Trustee Whitrow.
Here.
Trustee Napolia Villeries.
Here.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
I am here.
President Johnson.
Here.
ABC Jones.
Here.
And Thomas Renbarger.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great. Let's go ahead and do 1.3 approval of the agenda. We had just discussed possibly moving some items around. So can I hear a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and do roll call. Thank you.
Trustee Whitrow.
Yes.
Trustee Napolia Villeries.
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Yes.
David Johnson.
Yes.
Nathaniel Jones.
Yes.
Thomas Renbarger.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And may I just clarify, what specifically are we going to move around so that we know the order of the agenda?
Oh, yes. We'll put 2.3 first under informational items.
And then?
And then 2.2 will remain the same. So essentially we're putting 2.1 last on our informational items agenda. Yeah. So we're just moving the order.
All right.
So 2.3 is first and 2.1 is last.
Correct.
Got it.
Okay, great. And we have our roll call. Wonderful. Do we have any public communications 1.4?
Anybody and is an attendee yes, we have Lowell Bennett. Give me just one moment and I will move
Great.
them over.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I guess you guys didn't expect to see me here, but I pay attention to my emails. So,
All good. We're happy to have you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak. It really ties into my comments on the from the board meeting. And again, I may have this completely wrong, but I just want to emphasize the importance of maintaining budget flexibility as the years goes on. And recall that we set our FTEF target or FTEF allotment back in January. And to my knowledge, at least, it hasn't been updated to reflect the many, many changes, economic and otherwise, that have occurred. And I've heard different kind of explanations that, oh, the budget is set and we can't change it. And if that is indeed the case, then I think we need a new budget process because, of course, things are going to change. Obviously, there's money for emergencies and that sorts of thing. But in my mind, if students are coming back, if enrollment is increasing, I think it's an emergency that we provide the courses that they would like to take, and that we maximize the opportunity to take those courses, even if it means that we may not get the credit for it. I guess there's a 3-year averaging in terms of getting credit on the SCIF for the FTES. But if we don't get that FTES now, we won't get the credit for it as part of the averaging process next year and the year after that, in addition to this year. So I just want to emphasize that the budget process needs to have that flexibility, especially as it relates to capturing every available FTES, both in terms of maximizing revenue to the district and providing opportunities for our students to take the courses take and complete the courses that they need for their certificates and graduation. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you very much for your comments. Sasha, is there anyone else who would like to give public comment at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you all. If there are no additional public comments, we'll go ahead and go to 1.5, approval of the minutes. Can I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Sorry, trustee Withrow,
Yes.
trustee Napoli Bellarice,
yes.
trustee Delphine Polk,
Yes.
President Johnson,
Yes.
Dr. Jones.
I think I need to abstain because I don't believe I was present.
That is correct. Thomas Winberger,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and go to the PBC update. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, thank you. So since this body last met, I'm trying to remember exactly when that was. I guess it would be in the minutes, but
July of
The-
last year.
July of last year. Okay, then the PBC has continued to oversee the work of the budget allocation model task force, which had evolved into being named the resource allocation management task force, and in particular the BAM task force or RAM task force worked with CM Brombaugh from Cambridge West to develop a resource allocation model in which the revenues for general funds, so for Fund 1 in particular, would pass directly from the state to the colleges as the seats of the revenue generation. So it's easy to kind of summarize in a couple sentences, but that was the work of over a year as the members of the task force were educated on all the different components of the student-centered funding formula, and then how that would impact how the change from being a purely apportionment-based funding model, so just based on enrollments, to including these other areas of certificate and degree completion, and then also serving particular types of students like Pell Grant students, how that would affect the revenue generation for each of the colleges in the district. So that work was completed towards the end of the spring 22 semester. I think the BAM task force had its last meeting in May of this year. And the work on developing how do we know exactly what our expenditures are, at both the district and college level. So the expenditure side of the resource allocation model has been a topic that's been taken up by the chancellor's work group, but there's a chance that will actually come back to the PBC. There's a joint meeting between the PBC and PGC next Friday, and that's one of the topics that we'll take up, is how exactly are we going to continue working on the expenditure side of the resource allocation model. The other thing that the PBC has done is, as part of the 22-23 budget development process last spring, we had been receiving updates from time to time on what the status of the available funds would be, funding that would be provided by the state, and then as part of that, we received an update in March And then there were some more adjustments that were made due to the May revise. But the committee itself didn't actually receive a report on this directly until early last month, the first Friday of September, whenever that was. And we, at that time, there had recently been caught a miscalculation in the total computational revenue, so the total amount of money that the district would receive. And so that mistake was corrected, but that had some impact because unfortunately the error was, we overestimated the amount of revenues that we would have. So there had to be an adjustment as a result. And that adjustment was, the committee had heard a couple of different possibilities for the budget adjustment in early September. We tried to have a meeting later in September to actually approve that. That actually never came off, just because of, I think this is one of these things, like, it happened so late that it was actually hard to accommodate the participatory governance process, just because of how late in the game that the mistake was found and corrected. So that, I think, is a little unfortunate, but I guess understandable. If you want to think of it this way, you might think of it as a stress test of the participatory governance process. And I don't know how well we actually came through the stress test, just because we didn't quite, at least at the PBC, we didn't quite close the loop. Again, owing to how little time there was to kind of shepherd it through the participatory governance process. So we tried our best, but it just didn't come off. So with that, then as I said, there will be this joint meeting between the Participatory Budget Council and the Planning and Budget Council and the Participatory Governance Council on a week from today. And yes, one of the big things, let's see, I believe the agenda items is we're going to review the parcel tax plan. We're going to develop the parcel tax plan that all the vice presidents of instructions at the college, at the colleges had come up with in order to spend the parcel tax funds in a manner appropriate with how the language of the parcel tax statute or whatever the technical term is for it, but just the language of the parcel tax has specific areas that the money can be spent on, and the vice presidents of instruction came up with plans for each of the colleges that adhere to that. So that joint meeting will receive a report on the parcel tax plan. We will consider and hopefully adopt the budget development calendar for 23-24. And then we'll have the discussion on how shall we proceed with the continuance of the work in developing the expenditure side of the resource allocation model. And so with that, I think that is a pretty good summary of what we've been doing at the PBC this last while. But if either Dr. Jones or Dr. Johnson has anything they'd like to add, of course, they're free to do so.
That was pretty thorough. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have any questions?
I have an observation, if I could.
Go ahead, Trustee Woodrow.
Our budget process is obviously very complicated for a number of reasons. One thing is that we don't, in my mind, take enough of a focus and recognition of unfunded mandates, where we're mandated by some external authority to do something in a certain way and a way that it's going to cost money. and we don't recognize that we're mandated to do it without funds that are going to come in, they're going to come from someplace else. But one of the things that areas I think we can improve on, and it was touched on here, where when you go through a year, there's going to be a multitude of changes. Most, whether it's in the business sector or other areas of the government, on a budgetary process where there's a lot of changes, they'll show at least on a quarterly basis, where the budget was to begin with and where it is at this point in time in terms of expenditures. So we can see as we're moving through a year that we had budgeted X amount of money for a certain endeavor, and it's cost us 20% more. And that to me is not being reflected for the board, but as an institution, the administrative elements of the institution, as well as the public. See that as we're moving through a year, and certainly at the end of the year, there should be a picture that would show this is what we were initially budgeted through a whole set of criteria, and here's how we ended up the year at. So we can see that as we roll then into the next year, or the next spread of 3 to 5 years on a 3 to 5 year budget process. At this point.
Thank you, Trustee Whitlow. Are there any other questions? Cindy, did you want to say something?
Oh, I think Nathaniel, Dr. Jones would like to say something first. Go
Oh,
ahead.
yes, please. I missed your hand, Dr. Jones. Go ahead, please.
No worries. Thank you very much. I will try to keep my comments somewhat brief, but I wanted to make an additional point, and that is while we recognize that budgeting is a plan, it's a plan on how we anticipate both receiving revenues, but then also in terms of how we plan to make expenditures. Once the fiscal year has begun, there may be some minor adjustments, but from regard to the state resources, that's pretty much fixed, unless there are some changes in what they calculate or whatever, and that is dealt with as an adjustment during the course of the year, but we never know when we're going to potentially receive that. Now, with that being said, where there is opportunity to make adjustments, as it were to speak, is in terms of when we are making expenditures. We realize that we're spending less in one area and then maybe needing to spend more in other areas. And we can make some adjustments, but we also have to be cognizant of what we call restricted funds management, to make sure that we're spending the resources in a manner that's consistent with whatever the stated restrictions are on those types of funds. Obviously, unrestricted general funds is the most fungible, meaning that you have the largest degree of latitude that you can spend those resources on, with the exception of those resources that are allocated to faculty, because that affects the 50% law. And so I want to be cognizant of that when we are making what we call fiscal management decisions, there is a latitude. And I think that the VPSs, working in concert with the VPIs, do those kinds of adjustments in terms of managing one term to the next with cancellations, and then reallocating those resources to produce to offer additional courses and so forth. So there is this sort of robust management that occurs, but as Trustee Withrow indicated, the process is a lot more complicated and involves many, many more variables than you might think at first blush.
Thank you for that, Dr. Jones. Maybe just one other question, Vice President Delphine Polk, if I may.
Sure.
Just two clarifications, going back to Thomas. Thank you, Thomas, for the comment that you had said earlier on in terms of, I think, the timeline, trying to meet, and the inability to actually go through those processes. I think one of the questions that I have, first of all, thank you for stating that, because I think that there was such a small delta between when that error was discovered and everything that needed to be done and the deadlines to get it. So I believe that people were trying, but it didn't quite work. And I wonder if there is a subgroup of the participatory governance. So when something like that happens again, where not everybody needs to attend, but it might be interesting to think about a subgroup where at least there are people who could attend. But again, not really a suggestion, but that might be food for thought. And then the other question that I had really had to do with your parcel tax. So you will be talking about the parcel tax annual or 2-year plan at your next meeting. And do you do that once a year for every 2-year plan, or do you do that every?
We'll be doing it this year for sure. And I'm not sure what's going to happen next year with it, but it would make sense that there would be some kind of sort of midpoint update that would happen towards the beginning of next academic year. Like I said, I don't know for sure, and I can't recall if we had a report last year at this time or not. It would be in our committee's meeting minutes from that time, but I just can't recall. So for sure we'll have the report this in a week from today, and then it makes sense that there would be at least an update around this time next year as well. And I don't know that.
And can you
go ahead?
Can you check on that going forward? Because I think that our understanding as board members is that it does go through you all. I know that the committee, Parcel Oversight Committee, takes care of it, but I think that there has to be some kind of touch base between the two faculty committees and ensuring that it goes through you all.
Yeah, and my sense is that yes, that did happen. I just don't recall off the top of my head. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you. Those are just my two questions.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
And I believe Vice President
Dr. Jones, I have your hand up. Is that a legacy hand?
Okay.
Yes, that was legacy, and I apologize. I realized that.
Oh, no problem. Okay, we can, thank you very much. We can go ahead and move to 2.2, the general finance update from Dr. Jones.
Vice President Delphine Polk, I
Yes,
don't know if I can reorder it in terms of protocol, but
I apologize. Yes, I apologize. Yes.
Since we have a guest.
We do have Ben with us. So let's go ahead and go to we reordered it 2.1, the audit update from Ben.
Is that okay, Dr. Jones?
Absolutely.
Sorry, folks.
Okay.
Thank you. And I apologize in advance. I actually am going to have to jump off fairly soon, but I'd be happy to provide a quick update and speak to any questions from the committee. Where we're at right now with respect to the audit is kind of right in the midst of our final procedures. So at this point, we've gotten through the bulk of our control testing. We've been able to compile some pretty detailed memos across all of the different areas where controls are in place kind of by section to build that understanding in this first year of our understanding of the district. And we're working with primarily fiscal, but also with financial aid and A&R to kind of complete our testing across the financial statements, the state compliance opinion, and the federal compliance opinion. I was actually on a call with the ACCJC committee just a little bit earlier this morning, and let them know that we've been getting really, really strong support from the district, both from Dr. Jones and from Adil, kind of serving as our highest level contacts at fiscal, and also from A&R, Dr. Droker, and federal, Mr. Ken Lira. And I just would want to kind of recap on conversations I've had with President Reese on how terrific the experience has been at working with, all the many staff of the district and kind of going in this direction to complete the audit. Now, having said that, it's a little tricky at this time for me to give very much status on things that are entirely closed out. There is quite a bit of testing in progress. The deadline day that we had for items requests was last Friday. And so this week and next week are some of kind of our core fieldwork weeks for kind of churning through all of those items. There have been a handful of areas that are closed out at this time, but many things still open. So I was going to have the opportunity to speak with President Reese next Thursday morning, I believe, where I'll be able to provide probably a much more comprehensive update of where our testing is at, and kind of any resolution from any noted areas of concern. And then I would say following that, looking kind of toward early November, when we're starting to compile the financial statements, prepare the draft to be ready for that December board presentation, the December 31st Chancellor's Office submission. Come early November, we'll have a very concrete sense of kind of where the testing has brought us to, where we're at with any exceptions noted. I know that's always an area of interest. And be able to speak real well to if there are any adjustments or other items of that nature. That was kind of the same timeline we provided to the ACCJC committee as well. But with that, I want to open for any questions any members of the committee may have regarding our procedures or kind of where we're at in the process.
Thank you, Ben.
Of course.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Thank you, Ben. Do you have
Absolutely.
any questions, colleagues?
I think Dr. Jones has a question. Vice President Delphine.
Go ahead,
So-
Dr. Jones.
So Ben, can you provide to the group a reiteration that as far as you're concerned, we are on track for meeting the deadline of the submission to the board and also to the state, as you and I had previously discussed. So can you confirm that for the group, please?
Yes, Dr. Jones, I would be happy to make that explicit. Based on the outstanding cooperation we've received from the district, we anticipate no issues, no concerns over hitting both of those deadlines and being able to bring this report to the full board at the traditional December meeting and ultimately submitting it well in advance of the Chancellor's Office December 31st deadline.
Excellent. Thank you again for that. I appreciate you making that explicit.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ben. And I'm wondering, Vice President Delphine Pook, if I may.
Go ahead, President Reese.
Yeah, so maybe what would be good is if there are, since the presentation is going to be in December, whenever this committee is scheduling its next meeting, it might be good to have Ben come to the meeting. If there are any other questions that aren't dealt with at the board level that we'd like to delve into, or any of our other individuals in the committee would like to delve into, it might be good to do that. Because at that point, we'll have seen the presentation, but there might not yet have been enough time for the Q&A to actually take place at a board meeting, if that is amenable to.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. That would give us a lot more time to be able to think through any questions or make any comments about this with some time to delve into these issues. I think that's advisable.
And I'd welcome that opportunity for my part. I know we spoke about that at a high level, and I love the idea of being able to check in a more detailed fashion with the committee, in advance of that full kind of higher level board meeting. So I'll keep a lookout for that meeting invite. I'll make sure to set aside the time so I can do that personally.
And I'll just add that I have had meetings monthly with Ben, and I think it's been really wonderful to hear how much collaboration and cooperation the district and the district staff have been putting forth in terms of ensuring that all the documents are with them. And there's just been a good relationship that's happened, number one. And number two, it's also been really good to be able to have this monthly meeting with Ben at the leadership level from my perspective, because that's never happened before with any of our accountants. And so I think that that really just helps allow for the whole picture in terms of what's happening internally, that board members should know that, you know, we haven't always gotten an opportunity to know. So I think all around it's been good, and we look forward to the presentation in December for sure. So thank you, Ben, for all the work that you've been doing. And thank you, staff in the finance office. I think that sometimes that isn't always visible to people, but, you know, especially at these particular moments in time, there's a lot asked of you. And hearing from our auditor that there's so much of that information being put forth is reassuring. So thank you for that.
Agreed. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ben. We look forward to your presentation.
My pleasure. I look forward to giving it.
Thanks, Ben.
Talk with you very soon.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
All right, Dr. Jones, would you
Okay,
like to give your update?
yes, I will make a few updates. Well, one of the things I don't have to update you on because Ben did it so eloquently, which was to give you a status of where I thought we stood with regard to the audit. But I will say that we continue to be of support and facilitating you know, the external audit and ensuring that it is remaining on track for completing in a timely manner. The other thing that I would share is that we are working on making the necessary adjustments to the budget book for the fiscal year 22-23 in response to the approval that you all provided us at the 27th board meeting. And as part of that work, we are finalizing the specific list of frozen positions that comport with the amounts that I shared with the board at that meeting. Also, the finance team has been working with our bond team to provide the necessary information related to the bond issuance for our $120 million issuance. There's, as you can imagine, a lot of financial information that is needed in order to support those efforts, and we continue to collaborate with our partners in doing that. Also, we are providing coordination and support related to the program review that's being done by the Department of Education. And additionally, we are working alongside other units in support of the ACC-JC site visit team that is here yesterday and concluding today. The last thing that I would share is that, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, I conducted, along with ABC Ahmed, a focus group that included the college presidents, and Tom did a very excellent job of outlining where the PGC was in terms of the resource allocation model. And what he's explained is that we are making a shift from more of an incremental budgeting process to what they call an RCM, or resource-centered funding model or budgeting approach. And what we have done with that is really focus on the revenue side of it. What we haven't done is looked at how might we do the expense budgeting? And so that's the next leg, as it were to speak, of the work that needs to be done to facilitate thoughtful, appropriate suggestions on how might that work. Wanted to try to create space to help inform process change and a structure that is a good structure for the Peralta Community College District. So began having conversations and a focus group pertaining to that. And so we did one within the past couple of weeks with the college presidents. Another one is being planned for later this month that is going to invite an opportunity or create an opportunity for faculty to provide thoughts and input. And then another one probably early in November that will be open to college administrators and classified professionals. So what we're doing is seeking input and also using these focus groups as an opportunity to help educate people on some of the budgeting and some of the restrictions and degrees of freedoms that we do or do not have when it comes to some of these matters. So hopefully trying to elevate the level of discourse and knowledge around some of these fiscal matters. Dr. Johnson was at that meeting, so if he would like to share his thoughts or perspective, that would be fine. But that was the last item that I wanted to share. So thank you for your attention and consideration.
I don't
Great,
know if that
thank
was
you,
a-
Dr. Jones.
Don't know if that was an
Sorry, Dr. Johnson?
invitation. No, I didn't know if that was the invitation. I've been in the interest of time. I don't have an ability to adequately add to that. So that was a very good summation. Thank you to Dr. Jones.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, do we have any questions? President Reese?
Yeah, just a quick question. Dr. Jones, did we, for the Department of Ed, was that date moved from the 30th of October to the 15th, what we were going to be submitting, or?
The chancellor submitted a letter asking for an extension
Right.
to provide the needed information.
Right.
That letter was not responded to the best of my knowledge. However, because of the tremendous dedication and hard work of our colleagues, the vast majority of the information that they requested was submitted by the end of last month in accordance with their original timeline. There's probably just a handful, mainly the information on the specific students that they wanted to get information on. I think each college had to provide student records for 20 students each. And so I know that work is in progress, but that I think is primarily the only thing that wasn't done, but we actually had a little bit more time to complete that component of the work.
Good to know. And then happy to hear about the focus groups. Hopefully you will present on some of the feedback or information gathered from the different focus groups at some point in time to the board.
I will happily do that if that's what you would like, but my intent is that I would gather that information, think through it, process it, come up with a recommendation, present it to our shared governance bodies, and then when we actually get their input and actually have something that we would want to bring back to the board for a formal adoption for the development of the 23-24 budget approval, it would definitely be there. But if you wanted, information prior to that, as long as the chancellor's fine with it, I'm more than happy to make those kinds of informal presentation or provision of information as well.
Stay with your timeline. I think that how you strategize and plan that out is going to be much more effective than what I had suggested. So stay with it, but good to know that you will be having those focus groups with all of the different constituent bodies. And then I guess my other question is, if at some point in time we can maybe either have the chancellor or you all maybe think about the FTEF allocations, because there might be some confusion or clarification needed in terms, because this is the second or third time it's come up now in terms of the FTEF for fall and spring. But let's save that for another time in terms of if there is any clarification that needs to be put forward in terms of understanding, that might be good, but either through the chancellor or yourself at a board meeting.
Yeah, I'm sure we would be happy to do that. Unfortunately, there is some misunderstanding about that for sure. But I do know that once we have our budget, that's based on a certain amount of resources. And then it's really, once we factor that in, and with the new budgeting model, that's going to go to the directly to the colleges. And then how they choose to expend that revenue, it is up to them. I can tell you firsthand, in terms of College of Alameda, we have a very, very robust financial modeling that we use that includes the various elements of the student-centered funding formula that go into the calculation for how we allocate FTEF for each of the various disciplines. Other colleges may use different methodology, but that's I think that you don't necessarily want to have a one size fit all, but I think that we can learn from best practices of various colleges within the district and outside of the district.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions or observations? President Reese?
I'm good.
Okay. Trustee Withrow? Bill, I think you're on mute.
Muted.
There we go.
Oh, there you are.
Just trying to get unmuted.
No worries.
No, I'm fine. I look at the budget a little differently than being expressed here. I look at the budget as a resource allocation system. And to make it come alive, we need to see how our assets are being allocated vis-a-vis how we would really like to have them funded in terms of the performance that it leads to.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Okay. This has been really informative. I'm really glad we were able to meet, and we will be scheduling another one. We'll discuss that with Sasha. I'm not sure exactly when, but it will be forthcoming. We'll notice it, etc.
We could discuss it now if you'd like. We've done it in other
We can.
meetings.
Let's go ahead and do that.
I mean, we have time, so it's entirely up to
We do have
everybody else,
time.
but
Yeah. Let's go ahead and schedule it now. Did we want to meet sometime next month?
well, I think the plan is to meet before the November board meeting, right? Because Ben,
Right.
that's when Ben's gonna present.
The
So-
December board meeting or the November board meeting?
Is he presenting in November or December? I thought it was
Dr.
due in
Jones,
December.
I thought
but
it was in
it's-
December.
Okay, is he presenting, Dr. Jones, do you know if he is presenting at the December board meeting or November board meeting?
Oh, you're muted, Dr. Jones.
I'd have to confirm. I think it's it may be both. One, the November would probably be a first read, and then a final read in December, ahead of time to submit it to the state before the 31st of December. That's my recollection of the chronology, but I'd have to double check that to make absolutely certain of that, but that's my recollection.
So why
Okay.
don't we, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
go
the
ahead.
next
go ahead,
board
President
meeting in November is the 15th. And then December meeting is
Is it the 15th or the 8th?
November. No, the 8th, it's not the 8th because that's election day.
We moved it because it's election day.
Yeah.
That's right.
I always get scared when I keep thinking I messed up the calendar again.
Yeah.
So it's the 15th, and then we have two meetings, and then we have one meeting in December, the 13th. So
So are we thinking afterwards? Or are we
Or
thinking?
the
for
Friday,
meeting?
is this Friday time slot okay for folks? Actually, this works out pretty well for me.
Everybody else?
Anybody else have any opinions? Tom?
This time is okay, especially if it doesn't coincide with the PBC meeting. So
Of course, of course.
yeah,
So 1 to 2 is good.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
okay,
I missed
so
it.
are we planning? I'm sorry.
I missed that date. What was the date?
We're just
We
looking at
haven't
time
confirmed
slots,
a
Bill.
date.
We were just looking at a time and day slot, so we can choose a
Okay.
date now.
Okay, good.
Okay, go ahead, Sasha.
So November, I don't know when you're planning to do this, but November 11th is Veterans Day, so we are off. November, the week after that is November 18th. That looks like we're open. The week of the 21st is Thanksgiving. And then the week of the 28th, it looks like we're open. No, so that would be December 2nd.
That might probably be what do you all think? But I think that's probably going to be the best because, or the 18th, so 18th or the 2nd.
Correct.
I'm fine with the 2nd if you want to do it that day.
You all?
Yeah, I think the second will be a little bit better for me. The 18th, I mean, the meetings won't happen at the same time, but PBC I think is going to meet on the 18th.
Okay.
So just to kind of space out the meetings a little bit. I have
Sure,
no
of course.
preference for the second.
All right.
So we're talking of December 2nd?
That's correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Sounds good.
So 12 to between 1 and 2 o'clock, right? 12 to on Friday.
Yep.
12 to 2 on Friday?
No,
No,
12 to
12 to
December
December
2nd.
2.
Oh, sorry.
December 2.
Yeah, December 2nd.
Got it.
At 1
1
o'clock.
to 2. Got it.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good in on my calendar.
All right. Thank
I'll
you so
send
much.
everybody
All.
invites right after this meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
That was
Thank
very
you,
efficient.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
See you
We'll
later.
talk
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thanks.